I'd never had a reason to go through her drawers, but that morning, when I got up for a glass of water, something compelled me to open the one with her socks. Tucked between poorly folded pairs was a cheap, prepaid phone. It wasn't password protected. I turned it on, and the first thing I saw was a WhatsApp group with four core members: her, three friends from yoga, and one who seemed more reserved. The chat's title, Miami Power. A chill ran down my spine as I read the messages. This wasn't just gossip. They were talking about trips, about infidelity that had been turned into a competition. They had a point system, ranking themselves on the affairs they collected. 5 points for a one night stand, 10 for an ongoing relationship, bonus points if the guy was married, young, or wealthy. I kept scrolling. My wife's name was at the top of the leaderboard, again and again, like she was the captain of this sick tournament. One of them had written, "You're at 43 points, Queen. No one can touch you." The others replied with emojis of crowns and wine glasses. Amid the jokes, they had assigned her boring husband, that is, me, 37 justification points. I didn't earn enough. I talked too much about my work. I was predictable in bed. They even laughed about how I thought Olive Garden was fine dining. I stared at the screen, my fists clenched. This wasn't just infidelity. It was organized mockery, a dirty game with my marriage as the scoreboard. In another thread, things turned more sinister. She wrote that she was going to propose an open marriage. It sounded modern, liberating, just physical, not emotional. In reality, it was a strategy to legalize her double life. And if I refused, she would use my rejection as an excuse to divorce me and take half of everything. My gut burned, but I couldn't stop reading. She had it all planned out, step by step, even scripting her lines. If he doesn't accept, I'll paint him as closed-minded and controlling. It was a coldly architected demolition plan. The message that twisted the knife had been sent just that night. Tomorrow, I'm making my move on the gym owner. He's perfect. Body, money, and reputation. A much better package than the one I live with. That package was me. My hands were shaking. The picture was crystal clear. While I slept beside her, she was planning to use me as a springboard for her next upgrade. With every word, the woman sharing my bed became more of a stranger, more calculating, more cruel. I closed the phone. I put it back exactly where I found it and got back into bed. She was breathing peacefully, as if nothing was wrong. I didn't wake her. I didn't confront her. I decided to swallow my rage and remain silent. I understood then that this wasn't a battle to be won with shouting, but with proof. And if she wanted to ruin my life for her own convenience, she would first have to face mine. The complete, documented, undeniable truth. That same morning, as soon as she was awake, her performance began. She made coffee and sat across from me with a rehearsed air, like someone about to share a spiritual revelation. She talked about opening our marriage, keeping it only physical, never emotional, as if she were suggesting a trip to the beach. She used words ripped from a cheap magazine: freedom, connection, evolution. I watched her, feigning confusion, as if this was the strangest thing I'd ever heard, while inside, I replayed every message from that hidden phone. What she was trying to sell as modernity was nothing more than the perfect excuse to legitimize her point-scoring game. I bit my tongue until I could taste blood. I asked if she was sure, if she understood what she was proposing. She acted surprised by my hesitation. "It's better than cheating," she said. "Better to be honest." I nodded slowly, pretending to be uncertain. I was boiling inside, but I decided to give her enough rope to hang herself. In a neutral voice, I just asked for some time to think about it. I pretended to consider the idea while mentally cataloging her every gesture, her every word, like a profiler studying an enemy. That afternoon, while she was in the shower, I checked the hidden phone again. There were fresh messages, one to the group. "He's caving, guys. I think he's going to accept." Another one followed. "Perfect, because I already made progress with the gym guy. If this works out, I'm keeping him and leaving the other one. That way, I get half the house and lose nothing." My teeth ground together. This was no longer just about infidelity. It was cold calculation designed to strip me of everything I'd built. And the worst part was the mocking tone she used. I decided I wouldn't confront her in the heat of the moment. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of a scene where she could play the victim. My approach would be patience, proof, and a single surgical strike. I copied conversations, took screenshots, and saved everything to a hidden folder on my own laptop. I couldn't trust anyone else. Not family, not friends. Everything had to be under my control. And all the while, I moved as if nothing was wrong. I smiled at her over dinner, hugged her when she asked for it, enduring her false affection, like someone studying a snake's movements before cutting off its head. That night, when she asked for my answer again, I gave her a calculated response. "I'm thinking. I need to process it." Her eyes lit up, convinced she had already won. I let her believe it. She had no idea that in the silence I was swallowing, I was already writing her sentence. The first time I followed her to the gym, I did it with my heart in my throat. I stayed in the parking lot, a few feet from her car, pretending to be on a call as I watched her go inside. Half an hour later, she came out with the owner, a muscular guy with a fake smile. Before she got in her car, he grabbed her by the waist and kissed her like they were a couple. I raised my phone and took several pictures, each one clearer than the last. This wasn't suspicion or text on a screen anymore. This was pure visual proof. Lips on lips, my wife in the arms of her supposed new interest. But I wasn't satisfied. The next day, I walked into the gym as a potential client. I paid for a trial class and introduced myself. The owner, with his polished entrepreneur facade, shook my hand and talked about routines and training plans. I smiled and responded calmly, all while thinking about the photos in my pocket. I could feel the tension in my bones, but I didn't let it show. I wanted him to think I was just another clueless husband. That night at home, my wife returned to her script. She pushed again for the open marriage, repeating that it would be only physical, never emotional. This time, I pretended to agree, but I laid down conditions. 4 clear rules. 1. Absolute honesty. 2. The right to veto any person. 3. No one from our immediate circle, friends, neighbors, colleagues. 4. A 6-month trial period, which could be canceled at any time. She accepted enthusiastically, as if she'd just won the lottery, never suspecting that the rules were carefully designed traps. Her first move was to try and rewrite history. She presented the gym owner as a new interest under our new rules, ignoring the fact that I already had proof their affair had started long before. She did it shamelessly, trying to blur the line between what came before and what came after. I nodded, feigned credulity, and even listened to the intimate details she shared as if she were doing me a favor. I watched her smile, convinced of her victory, while I filed away every word to be used against her. The irony was that in the midst of this theater, our sex life was reborn. Perhaps because she thought I was now on board with her openness, she suddenly became more active, more adventurous with me. I allowed it, even encouraged it, because every gesture was just more material, a stark contrast to the photos and screenshots I had taken before our supposed agreement. I kept everything: the hidden phone, the images from the parking lot, printed copies of the chats. She thought she was building a new chapter, but what she was really doing was laying the bricks for her own collapse. 3 weeks after we agreed to the rules, she had already made the gym owner her exclusive date. They went to expensive restaurants, took trips out of town, and she would come home smelling of a perfume that wasn't hers. One night, she sat across from me with a glass of wine and, with the face of a teenager in love, admitted she was developing feelings for him. She didn't stop there. She asked for a weekend away at a bed and breakfast to test what it would be like to live together. I nodded slowly, hiding the rage that was drilling into my chest. That's fine, I told her. Enjoy yourself. In reality, in that very instant, I was weaving the final trap. The next day, I contacted the one woman from the WhatsApp group who never played the point scoring game, the prudent friend who had always seemed uncomfortable with the cheating. I reached out with an innocent pretext, a casual coffee. As soon as we sat down, I showed her that I knew everything. I laid out the screenshots and the photos. She sighed in relief, as if a great weight had been lifted. I thought you'd never find out, she said. She immediately gave me what she had been saving: a full dossier, complete chat logs, photos she had received, and a record of the point system they had invented. It was a complete map of the betrayal, with dates, mockery, and detailed plans. The key revelation was buried in those pages. The gym owner wasn't a free man. He was engaged to a nurse who worked night shifts. There were photos of them together, engagement rings, even a recent trip to meet her parents. My wife had no idea. While she thought she was climbing her conquest leaderboard, she was actually the other woman in a relationship that was about to explode. I smiled bitterly. Fate had just handed me the missing piece. Thanks to the prudent friend, I got the fiance's contact information. I wasn't reckless. I didn't call her right away. I prepared everything calmly. I called her from a new number, introduced myself with a steady voice, and asked to meet in person. We met at a discreet coffee shop. She arrived looking exhausted, still in her scrubs. In 10 minutes, I showed her the screenshots, the photos, and the proof of the point scoring chat. Her expression shifted from disbelief to fury in a matter of seconds. She didn't cry. She just clenched her jaw and said, "On Sunday, I want to be there when you confront him." That was our pact. I went home that night and watched her pack her suitcase, happy, believing she was heading off for a romantic weekend getaway. I hugged her from behind, feigned tenderness, and wished her luck. As she smiled, thinking of her conquest, I had already marked the exact date of her downfall on my calendar. Saturday night, while she was on her getaway with the gym owner, I worked around the house like a surgeon preparing for an operation. I organized every detail of a surprise party for a fake promotion. I set up tables, glasses, and a projector connected to my laptop. I sent out quick, discreet invitations that wouldn't raise suspicion. An email to my parents, another to hers, direct messages to the husbands of the two other cheating friends, and, of course, a special place reserved for the prudent friend, her own laptop ready to display the chats. The gym owner's fiancée agreed to come with her sister, both of them determined to burn his lies to the ground. I left nothing to chance. I printed out some of the filthiest screenshots. The taunts where they called me a boring package. The leaderboard with the points. The plans to legalize her affairs under the guise of an open marriage. I also selected photos of me with her from those same dates to make it clear that while I was making her dinner or taking her to family gatherings, she was in hotels with her lover. I saved everything in folders with ironic titles: Transparency, Modern Love, The Rankings. On Sunday, in the mid-afternoon, the guests began to arrive. My parents walked in looking confused, hers with proud smiles, believing it was a work event. The husbands of her friends arrived confidently, thinking it was a trivial celebration. Everyone was greeted with warmth, a drink in hand, and an atmosphere of false joy. No one suspected what was about to happen. The tension was a current running through my body, but my voice remained firm. When the prudent friend connected to the network and gave me a nod, I knew the stage was set. Shortly before 8, I heard my wife's car pull up. She walked in, suitcase still in hand, smiling, surprised to see everyone shouting, "Surprise!" She feigned excitement, hugging her parents and greeting my siblings. She hadn't even had time to put down her keys when I killed the lights and turned on the projector. The first image that appeared on the wall was the Miami Power Chat. Her smile evaporated. A heavy murmur spread through the room. I stood up, holding the remote for the projector like it was a gavel, and said in a clear voice, "Tonight, we're not celebrating a promotion. We're celebrating the truth. The truth about my wife and her friends. The truth about a point-scoring game based on destroying families. The truth about an open marriage that was never anything more than an alibi." No one breathed. My wife turned pale, trying to rush to the computer, but the prudent friend was already there, blocking the keyboard. And I knew the grand finale was about to walk through the door. Her lover, holding flowers and a bottle of wine, walking straight into his own public execution. The projector cycled through image after image. First, the chats about their Miami adventures. Then the point chart that turned infidelity into a morbid competition. Every projected sentence was a direct hit. My husband thinks Olive Garden is fine dining. With this one, I'm at 43 points. The husbands of her friends began to shift uneasily in their chairs, the veins in their necks bulging. The friends themselves tried to stammer out excuses, but it was too late. The room filled with cross accusations, as if a stone slab covering something rotten had just been lifted. When I projected the photos of her kissing the gym owner, taken before we ever spoke of opening our marriage, her mother let out a sharp cry. "This can't be true." My father just shook his head in disappointment. The other husbands were on their feet, shouting at their wives. One of them threw his glass against the floor, splattering wine across the floor like blood. She, my wife, tried to speak, but her every word was buried under the evidence I kept revealing. It was as if the projector were firing bullets made of screenshots and photos, one after another, leaving no room to breathe. And then the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there he was, the gym owner, a bottle of wine in one hand, a bouquet of flowers in the other, utterly convinced he was arriving for a romantic rendezvous. Everyone in the room stared at him in dead silence. With a frozen smile, I invited him in. The moment he stepped inside, I dropped the bomb. Let me introduce you to someone you probably know even better than I do. From the kitchen, his fiancée emerged, the engagement ring still on her finger. She stared him down, ripped the ring from her hand, and threw it in his face. "We're over, you bastard!" she screamed. The silence shattered into absolute chaos. He tried to stammer, to deny everything, but she confronted him with the very screenshots I had provided. His fiancée was screaming, crying, clinging to her sister, while all our guests watched as the man my wife had chosen as her upgrade was stripped bare of his prestige and his lies. My wife, realizing her lover was not a free man, lunged at him, first to demand an explanation, then to curse him. A clumsy scuffle broke out between them, flailing like animals in front of everyone. The chaos was total. Husbands yelled at their wives. My in-laws demanded to know what was happening, and my wife and her lover wrestled in the middle of the living room. I raised my voice above the din. "This circus ends tonight. If you ever come near my house, my family, or my name again, you will learn what it truly means to have your reputation ruined." The gym owner looked down, defeated, as his fiancée, held up by her sister, walked out sobbing. In that instant, my wife understood. She had not only lost her lover, she had been branded in front of everyone she knew. When the house was half empty, with broken glasses on the floor and murmurs fading into the street, I closed the door. I was alone with her. I watched her collapse into a chair, her makeup streaked, her breathing ragged. She tried to speak, to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that the man from the gym meant nothing. I didn't interrupt. I let her drown in her own excuses until she ran out of air. Then I told her the truth I had been holding for weeks. "You planned this yourself. You invented a points game. You mocked me. You planned to leave me while smiling to my face. There is nothing left to save." She tried to approach me, to kneel at my feet. "Forgive me, please. I didn't know what I was doing. We can start over." I held up a hand to stop her. I explained coldly that this destruction was no accident. The hidden phone, the manipulated rules of her game, the plans with the gym owner. It was all a calculated project designed to sink me. "I am not a stepping stone for you to climb to someone better," I said, looking her in the eye. "I am the end of your ladder." I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I spoke with the calm of a man who has nothing left to lose. I gave her 1 hour to pack whatever she wanted. I pulled the suitcases from the closet and left them in the hall. She moved between sobs, clumsily packing clothes, begging me to listen. I didn't. I went to my laptop, checked that all the evidence was backed up to the cloud, and returned to the living room. When she was finished, I walked her to the door. She tried to hug me before she left. I simply unlocked the deadbolt and gestured for her to leave. I watched her load her bags into a friend's car, wearing the same look of defeat she had tried to hide all evening. The silence that followed was brutal, but it didn't crush me. It freed me. I walked among the empty glasses, the leftover food, and the printed chat logs still scattered on the floor. I poured myself a drink and sipped it slowly, surveying the room like a battlefield after a war. For the first time in months, the air didn't smell of lies. I felt the emptiness of the house, but I also felt the certainty that this void was better than continuing to be someone's fool. I live with the scars, yes, but I also live with my dignity restored. I don't expect an apology. I don't think about second chances. The truth was laid bare for all to see, without masks, and everyone will now carry their own consequences. Her friends with their husbands, the gym owner with his reputation, and she with the brand of her public defeat. I am left with the only thing that still has value, the freedom to rebuild my life without chains, without games, without rankings, and the certainty that, as painful as it was, the open wound was the only way to my own peace.